5 minutes later on.
Well, I imagine we will have some more people join us over the course of the next few minutes, but I have another meeting this afternoon. I'm up in Salt Lake, so I'm going to have to leave pretty close to 11 o'clock to get things ready for that meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. We have a few things to get through on the agenda, but to start us off, let's just go around the room and do some introductions. I'm Mike Mills, currently serving as the chair of the Utah Lake Commission Technical Committee and here representing the June Sucker Recovery.
I'm Sarah Sutherland with Central Utah Water.
Dee Chamberlain with Saratoga Springs Owners Association.
Jeff Aberman with Saratoga Springs.
Sarah Carroll with Saratoga Springs Planning Department.
Mike Rouse, Central Utah Water.
Gerard Yates with Central Utah Water.
Jeff Hawking with the Division of Wildlife in Springville.
Terry Kohler with Pro City.
Rich Nicholson, Provo City.
Greg Vickstrom with Pro City.
Sullivan Love with Vineyard.
Todd Train with Highland.
Richard Hills with Utah County.
Jason Allen, Utah Lake, State Park, sorry.
Jonathan Laker, CH2M.
Scott Daly, Division of Water Quality.
Eric Ellis, Utah Lake Commission.
Sam Brager, Utah Lake Commission.
All right, thank you. As people come in, we'll try to have them introduce themselves as well. We're not too busy with our agenda, but moving on to item number 2, that is to review and consider approval of our meeting minutes from our last meeting on March 15th. Eric sent these out yesterday with the agenda. I was able to look through them. I don't have any comments. Does anybody else on the committee have comments regarding these minutes? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve them.
I'll move that the minutes be approved.
Motion from Greg, do we have a second? Right, we have a second. All those in favor of approving these minutes as written, please say aye. Aye. And any opposed? All right, thank
Sorry,
you.
including I didn't catch who was our second.
Figure.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 3, we will turn some time over to Eric to go through and just give us some updates on current issues and projects around the lake.
Awesome, thanks. As you can tell, looking out in the harbor, it looks like we're in a different park this spring. It looks fantastic out there. The lake has come up from last fall at its low point. It has come up 4.5 feet, more or less. It's up to about 3.5 feet below compromise now, 3.6 feet below. And it was at 8 feet below at its nadir, I guess you'd call that. So that's exciting. And Richard Nielsen this morning gave us an update from the Provo River Water Users Association that upstream, up in our mountains, the snowpack is still phenomenally high, and especially in the northern side of the valley. And so there's a lot more water to come off. So I'm hoping that we get close to compromise. I don't think that anyone's concerned about it going over that, but it would be really great if we could get close to that, and that sets us up for another few good years. So that's exciting news. Dredging updates. The Pelican Bay, the Saratoga City Marina is what they like to call it these days. It used to be Pelican Bay Marina. They are finishing up their dredging project. It's both the water building in the corner of their marina and the dredging of the whole marina, plus a kind of a shot out into the lake about 1,000 feet. And that will be done probably the second week of June. Do we have Saratoga Springs here? Does that sound about right? That was my.
I haven't been updated, so you.
I just barely got an update from them, so. So that's really exciting news. So that marina should be very usable, and they're interested not only in finishing that project this summer, but also pursuing over the next year or two the expansion of adding an extra jetty to the north of their existing marina that would have a beach and a swimming area, kind of adding that destination side of things to their marina, which is really exciting. The State Park Marina, last I heard, Jason, we're still on for some time after Labor Day. Do we have an estimate on that?
No, all the bids came in $600,000 over bid,
Uh-huh.
so,
Wasn't it a non-price type bid?
what
I
do
thought
you
it was,
want
I
on
thought that
first?
you had, sorry, I thought it was based off of a specific price. How
Yeah,
much can you accomplish within this amount?
yes, and no one can accomplish anything for less than $2.1 million. So, we're still hoping
What are we hoping for?
that we'll get something. Pray for $600,000. If anyone's got extra money in their budget, we'd appreciate any donations. We're not gonna give up on the project, we're just looking at different,
So there might be nothing this fall?
we're keeping an optimistic outlook that
I
will
like
still
that.
happen this fall, winter. Exploring new options, but yeah, the low bid came at 2.1 and we had a budget around 1.4, 1.5. They can't find a location to take 67,000 cubic yards of material. We're way too urban. County and the state, we don't own any land of sufficient size to handle that. Half the bids actually ended up using the South Valley Transfer Dump Station to take material, so it would be hauled off to a dump because they couldn't find places that would work. So it's a bigger issue than even we expected. We figured that the contractors would have contacts with people that would be willing to take that type, and they all came up short. Most of them came up short. So the trucking fees were just astronomical, and they're just.
Is
So
it-
we're exploring different options. We're not giving up. Our division director doesn't want to return the money. He knows that the marina needs it. He understands that this lake is on a cycle that we'll just be facing this exact same issue again. So we're optimistic that we'll figure some other ideas out. I've proposed a few, and it's just a matter if we can get the contractor and the engineers to see the light and work with the ideas I've come up with. So, yeah,
Awesome.
like, not even in the ballpark, it was just like sadly laughable almost when the bids came in. It's like, there's no way we can come up with that extra money.
Can I ask what, can that be used for anything?
The material?
The material?
To a point, yes. I know we offered it to the airport with their upgrades they're doing, and the soils testing that we did made it unsuitable for construction on it. It's more of a fill. Ivory Homes was mildly interested in it to raise the elevation of the development they're working on. However, they wanted us to be perpetually liable for any issues that would come up with the soil from here to eternity, like if they put the fill in wetlands. Apparently, they want to keep the state on the hook for that. So
Part of the
that,
reason I asked is Saratoga Springs is doing a big sports park. I don't know if that is.
even feasible.
I don't know if that's even something that can be discussed, whether or not it can be used.
The only way I could see that is if we could figure out some type of barge system, because the trucking around the lake would just put us right back up to where we are now.
Gotcha,
But-
yeah, and I don't know what quality or.
Yeah, I don't know what,
Or
if
salinity
you
or.
would, if you have one of your parks people who's in charge of the project, or one of your city engineers want to reach out to me, I'd be happy to pass the soil testing we've done.
Okay,
But I like the idea, because we're to that point, we're thinking outside the box, we're welcoming any and all ideas, and we'll throw them against the wall and see
well,
what
ours
sticks.
is 25 acres and we're in a location with high salinity soils, and so we're looking for a solution for how to keep the grass alive once we plant. So,
Mhm.
but I don't know, if- yeah, well, I'll have someone.
Please have them reach out to me.
How do you name it?
Jason Allen, I can pass you my business card when we're
Okay,
done.
good.
So, yeah, I wish I had better news. Yeah,
Never,
we could talk afterwards about some of the ideas I've had, but,
always fun surprises with this.
oh, yeah. So,
Sorry.
no, it's all good. It is what it is, as my chief likes to say. There's not a whole lot we can do about it. Work through the problem.
All right. The Utah Lake Festival is scheduled for June 3rd, Saturday, June 3rd. Oh, spring field trip, sorry, I wrote on it, and then I assumed that was my note. The spring field trips, we're excited about them. The one positive that the dredge was delayed is that it allowed the spring field trips to move ahead here at the state park. There are 13 volunteer stations that will be here for those 4 days. I put 12 there, but there's actually one more. And we'll have 13 schools, 46 classes, and just over 1,200 students in attendance to those for the spring field trips. We're excited about it. We would have had every slot full. Sadly, the bus system gets stretched thin this time of year, and one of the schools had to back out because they couldn't get a bus schedule. But this is about what we've had for the last 2 years in the spring field trip, and it's an exciting time. We're adding a couple new elements to it. It should be fun this year. The Utah Lake Festival is Saturday, June 3rd, is the first weekend of June. Be sure to come down and enjoy. If you're not already here doing a booth, come down and enjoy it. Bring your family. It's a fun event. Jim?
Are there fees for all of those events?
None of them.
None of them are, oh, okay.
So the field trips, just to clarify, Utah Lake Commission sponsors schools that 4th grade classes that want to come. We sponsor the bus, so we'll pay up to $200 for the bus fee, which usually covers most of it. We try to get the schools over on the west side of the lake to participate in the fall field trip, which takes place over in your city marina.
Oh, okay.
Because it makes that bus fee a little less, and then there's no cost to the school. And then the festival itself is covered largely through the June Sucker program, and then the Utah Lake Commission sponsors a portion of that as well. So it's free access from 10 to 2 p.m. that day for anybody and everybody from the community that wants to come down. All the booths they're educational booths largely. There's boat rides that Jim Cross is offering. They put a bunch of chairs on these big boats here and take people out of the harbor and take a look at the lake and the mountain scenery from just outside the harbor, and then bring them back. And that's always really popular. And then we'll have our concessionaire with paddle boards, letting people try paddle boarding for 15-20 minutes. Last year, 1,700 people gave it a try.
Wow.
So it's a fun event, and then we have booths that kind of wrap out around here, all the way out to the middle jetty and go out to the end, and we typically have a climbing wall at the end, so people, usually it's kids, but people can climb up the climbing wall and again kind of get a view of the whole park and the views around here, and it gives quite a great perception of the area. So it's fun. When will our next planning meeting be? We already held one planning meeting for the festival. We'll hold one more.
It's going to be in mid-May. We're just waiting on a few responses on the scheduling.
And at that meeting, we'll have the map laying out where everybody will be located. There's a bit of a boat show down on the south end, and it's quite an event. The permanent stations for wind sensors on Utah Lake. In working more with the Division of Water Quality, we decided that the buoys weren't necessarily the right fit. The solar systems on them weren't quite adequate to upload data as often as we needed for wind to make it a boater safety benefit. And so we're now looking at 1 or 2 permanent stations. So we'll work with Forestry, Fire, and State Lands on likely getting one set up on Bird Island. It's just a self-contained unit that has a solar panel on it and the wind meter and temperature, and then we'll look for some site at the north end of the lake. And the benefit to having our own 2 would be quick data collection and instantly have it available, so that as long as voters have access to the website, they'll have live or really close to live data on wind.
Is the airport tower information working out how we hoped, or did I send Jeff?
So I have been talking with DWQ about the airport and also just the Mesa West network that's just residents in the area. From what Marshall Bailey from DWQ's told me, it's feasible to combine it, but it goes beyond both he and I's coding capabilities. So that option we still want to consider, but I have to find who
It's a work in progress.
has the knowledge and everything else to help integrate those into this resource.
Yeah, I think you probably just need a little bit of program
Exactly,
background
yeah.
and web development. and to be able, because the information's there.
Yep.
It's stored.
So Marshall and I are
on the website.
definitely working on it. We just gotta find who that third person is to help us do it.
Any volunteers?
Programmers here.
I'm still trying to learn Excel.
So we'll keep you updated on wind sensors, but it'll be a great thing to have on the lake.
It will be great, it will be fantastic.
Jason will know when he wants to cruise across the lake or not. Youth paddleboard program, the commission's sponsoring a really cool paddleboard program for youth. Two kind of segments to that. There will be a junior high segment and a high school segment. We're not sure which ones. We expect that the junior high one's going to be the more popular one. But we are sponsoring 2 students from every junior high and high school in the valley to attend that.
For free.
For
those
free.
students.
And then the other students, there's room for double that, so we'll sponsor about a third of the program students, and then the other 2/3 of that program will come from just interested parties. And so far, we've had a lot of interest, and initially it will be held at the state park, but if there's lots of demand over in Saratoga Springs, they're willing to host some classes over there as well. So it'll be fun. It'll not just be for paddleboarding, but it'll teach the students how to be good citizens to the lake, so cleaning up and not littering and making the lake better than when it was when they left, water safety, and then also the sport itself, so it should be good. We have 2 interns that have been hired. One of those will help a lot with kind of the programmatic side of that youth program for paddleboarding, and then the others we're going to get trained on social media and public relations so that we can really push our public relations effort this summer for the lake, as it is full and we don't expect quite the algae situation that we saw last year. So we're excited about that. Back to you, Mike.
All right, Eric asked me to give updates on a couple of things as part of our meeting. If you look out the window right now, you can see one of the carp fishing boats heading out of the marina. Our carp fishing has been all systems go since the ice came off the lake. Hasn't been phenomenal, but it has been decent fishing. We've removed almost 600,000 pounds since the middle of February, which is okay. I would like it to be a little better, but with weather concerns, we've lost probably more days this spring than we normally do due to wind. That said, we'll kind of see how the rest of the year goes. It's fishing, so there's great days and there's really bad days. But everything's on track and things are moving as we would expect. And then the other item is monitoring antennas. These are for our June sucker population monitoring. And I think most of you are familiar that we implant a microchip. It's called a passive integrated transponder, or PIT for short. They're similar to the chips that people put in their dogs and other pets. But we have antennas located in the Provo River and some other tributaries. When one of these implanted fish swim over these antennas, it will record the number of that fish, the date, the time, and that's our main mechanism for monitoring June sucker population status. And we had plans to put in an upgraded antenna on the Provo River this year, but due to some manufacturing delays and then more water than we were really expecting, we kind of missed our window of getting that in, and probably, well, I know we won't be able to get it in before the June sucker spawning run really starts up. So yesterday, Dale and I and some of his, one of his seasonals worked to install some much smaller antennas in the Provo River, and we're hoping to get as much data as we possibly can this year. We'll see how that all goes. You want to say anything, Dale?
Yeah, our current system that we were going to upgrade from is still semi-functioning. About half of it is running, so we'll have that data in addition to the portable submersible antennas. So we're hoping that can kind of bridge the gap, and I think it will.
Yeah. So we expect this to be a great spawning year. With our stocking program with June sucker, we've been able to document continued population increases, and we hope to get enough data to be able to do that again for this year. We're excited about having a much better antenna in the future also.
Were you able to get additional additional portable ones to go in any of the other tributaries?
Right, so we have 7 of these small, they're about 3 foot in diameter, circular submersible antennas, and we put 2 of those in the Provo River. Years like this, when the American Fork River flows, it actually becomes a surprise spawning resource for us, so we're going to put some up there, some in the Spanish Fork, and some also in Harbor Creek.
Awesome.
We're excited.
Mike, are the lawyers, is there be much impact on the fishing results as a result of the lake being higher than it's been in some time?
I actually expect it to be better. For the last 2 years, there's definitely a happy medium where the lake is low enough that the carp aren't being able to escape into vegetation, and I believe we achieved that probably 2 summers ago, summer of 2015, when we were just setting records all summer, more fish than we'd ever had before. But for much of last year, we really had issues with getting fish off the water and trying to offload fish because the lake was so low that many of our access points weren't even feasible to use. And so I expect some improvement. We've come up more than I expected and relatively quickly also. And I think we've passed the happy medium point now, and so it's probably not ideal, but hopefully it is better than it was last year. Kind of spreads the fish out more also, which presents some challenges. Yeah.
Could this just be a first sign that it's working and there just aren't as many fish?
Yeah, it definitely could be, and then I don't know that I've presented it in this forum, but last spring we documented a few aquatic macrophyte beds, just beds of submerged vegetation out in the lake that we were really excited about because that's why we've been doing carp removals to get that habitat back. And all of those areas were dry by midsummer last year, and so we hope to see that vegetation continue throughout the summer this year. That would be a great sign that what we set out to do is happening. So.
Don't you have you already done your June sucker meetings?
No, they're this afternoon and tomorrow. Yeah.
Can I add something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of the submerged vegetation, we're also working with the Division of Wildlife. This year, in addition to our Phragmites and invasive species removal, we put in, as part of our watershed restoration initiative request, a request to get some funding for seed work. And so we have funding for about 300 acres of wetland seeding. And yesterday we had the opportunity to go up to the Farmington Bay Bird Refuge, I'm not sure what it's called entirely, but that is a DWR facility, and talk with those guys about their successes in planting wetland species. I know that the commission tried it, I don't know, back in 2009 or something like that, and tried some plugs and they failed because the water came up and flooded them out. Well, some new technologies have been developed that allow those guys to attach the seed to the ground, so they spray it out kind of a hydro seed with they call it a tackifier on it that allows the seed to stay in place so it doesn't get washed away, it doesn't get buried so easily because you can place it just where you want it. And then they also have a new system that they've developed for taking the seeds out of dormancy, at least when there's seeding in the spring, so that within days after they spray the seed down, they're sprouting and coming up and not having to worry about, a cold week putting them back into their dormant stage and it taking, oftentimes you'll just lose the seeds as a result. And so our Robbie Edgell, the DWR habitat biologist, will be working directly with that grad student who has worked and published papers on this new technology, and we will try to use that as we implement our seeding this year so that it can be as successful as possible. And it'll take place up in Powell Slough and then along wherever the shoreline happens to be this fall and next spring in Provo Bay. So, just as an update.
Okay, thank you, Eric. We'll go ahead and move on to item number 4 in terms of time over to Scott Bailey from Division of Water Quality for an update and discussion on our resolution pertaining to the water quality study and stakeholder process.
Last month when this group met, we were providing comment considering version 9 of this proposed stakeholder process for the Utah Lake Water Quality Study. As you remember at that last meeting, I think we didn't make a formal motion or endorsement of it, but we approved in concept and allowed it to go to the Utah Lake Commission for their initial review, where they hadn't really seen the process that we've been working on until that point. So since that last meeting, we made a presentation to the Utah Lake Commission Governing Board, received some verbal comments from that body. We've also ended our, I think it was almost 5-week stakeholder comment period following our March 3rd stakeholder meeting, and incorporated all those comments, many of which from the stakeholder meeting were already incorporated in here the last time we considered it. Just we took those verbal comments and updated as fast as we could and returned those out. So today, version 10, just as we did last time, I used a track changes red line format to show you the changes that have been made between version 9 and version 10. And these are the comments, or these are a response to the comments of the governing board and the handful of formal comments that we've received since the last meeting. So, I don't know, just want to just step through these here real quick, or if you folks have had time to review them. On page 2, we just clarified into permits in terms of implementing the whatever study recommendations may come out of this study. Just kind of a clarification. We're going to allow facilities that will have until January 1st of 2030 to implement any of these recommendations into their permits. Just figured that was a clarification. On page 3, we replaced the word provide with forward. This is in the thought of that DWQ is not going to be making an adjustment to any recommendations that come out of the steering committee. We just wanted to make it clear that forwarding and we're not going to be making those adjustments. Next change is just a text clarification on page 5 to make the word consistent with the number. And then as a result of a comment from the governing board, we've taken the suggestion to say that DWQ's appointee will serve as a co-chair rather than specifically designated the deputy director. The governing board's idea with this is to give DWQ a little bit more flexibility in who they can have serve in as the co-chair. Comment at the first sentence at the bottom, the first highlighted sentence at the bottom of page 5 is also a recommendation from the governing board. And this was to do with attendance recommendations. How would we deal with a steering committee member or representative that was inactive in attendance? Because I think we all agree that we want someone who is really highly engaged in attending all the meetings. And at some point, if you have someone or their designees not showing up, how do we go about rectifying that? And we considered, a number of approaches, how city councils do it, for example, and there's a number of different ways where they have a required attendance policy, but then they get into the weeds of, what's an excusable absence and all these other things. And so we thought we'd just take the light-handed approach and just put out the expectation that all committee members or their designee are required to attend the meetings. And then I guess if it becomes an issue, then the steering committee can take up that and make a recommendation for replacing them. But we don't have that part of it explicitly stated in here. We just put out that expectation that as you're considered for a position on the steering committee, you or your designated alternate are expected to be there. The next sentence, stretching from page 5 to page 6, this was a comment that we received from the Salt Lake Public Utilities. This sentence was in version 8 of this document and was removed going to version 9. And the reason it was removed is when we were considering changes to the science panel to allow research contractors to participate on the science panel and to allow more flexibility to include more local researchers on the science panel. And we made an adjustment to the steering committee just to kind of remove that prohibition. But the Salt Lake City's comment was that where the science panel is more of a discipline based, and those are the folks doing the work and the ones who have experience in science on Utah Lake, is different than the steering committee where they're the folks that are actually representing stakeholder interests. That they thought that we ought to reinstate that statement to disallow a science panel member from participating on the steering committee.
It seemed to me, if I remember correctly, at the governing board meeting, we also had said something about having someone representing the Jordan River district.
Commission.
Did we decide not to add them as a stakeholder?
We did not create an extra spot for them, and we were a little confused actually when considering that comment. Walt convinced us that the comment was to bring someone from the Jordan River Commission onto the governing board, and we debated back and forth whether that also meant onto the steering committee. But we are going to reach out to them to see, the level of participation. The executive director is she has an office in our building right next to.
We've looked at it before. The governing board is fairly tight in its structure on who can be a member of the governing board.
Yes.
And so the invitation has been made to attend the meetings to the executive director of the Jordan River Commission.
Right.
But we can't even have them be an ex officio member because of our bylaws.
Of our governing board, yes. I'm talking about just the steering committee for this, the water quality, et cetera, because there was so much that went on with the river, with the algae bloom and things that went through the river into their secondary system. So I thought we had considered having someone on this, not this committee or the governing board, but this steering committee.
One thought we had with that, we decided to leave it alone, was that Eric participates in the Jordan River Commission.
Yeah, so I'm
And
an
it
ex
might be
officio
an
member of
avenue
theirs.
for their interest to be represented
I see.
in this process.
All right.
I don't know how you all feel
Wasn't
about
it
that.
also discussed that they're kind of fall under this Utah Lake Water Users Association? It sounds like we talked about that as
In-
well.
The water interests anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
The water
So
interest.
They're somewhat,
Yes, some of the entities of those downstream uses are a part of the Jordan River Commission, but they don't necessarily represent the commission. I think if it's sufficient to have Eric represent or tie in the Utah Lake Commission interest, then we can just leave it
We're okay.
at that.
So as it moves forward and we get into the meat of the steering committee work, I can report that to the Jordan River Commission at their regular meetings.
Okay. All right, and then a couple of comments. And we just kind of reorganize this table rather than showing, previous version showed a comment with, or a column with a name. We're trying to get this approved in concept. We're not really debating names right now, so we just took that out of there and then removed the names for the co-chairs and just put the expectation in there, or the designated co-chairs for the commission, executive director, and then for water quality representative. Struck the word secondary, just so that, we're clear that that particular stakeholder interest can represent all water uses, not just a secondary water use. We received a comment from the Department of Agriculture and Food that they would like to be included as a representative on the steering committee. And the agricultural community in general has been advocating for 2 or 3 positions to represent ag interests on the steering committee. Where we're trying to balance this out, where most interests are represented by one individual. We would like the agricultural community to come to the table or get in the room together and nominate who best represents their interest. So we made an edit here to add UDAF or a local agricultural interest to serve as a affiliated representative for that stakeholder interest. Before, we had it as the Conservation Commission. And if you go back into previous versions, version 4, we explicitly stated UDAF, because that was who we thought would be the best rep. And then based on comments from this group and from the Department of Agriculture and Food, you know, we wanted to put that more at the local level. But we've added them back in here, and we're gonna let them make the recommendation to us on who will represent their interests. Minor comment on page 9 where we included upstream and downstream water bodies, so to play to that ecosystem-wide perspective.
Can I ask a quick question? POTWs, Sullivan, you might know, what's the name of that group that represents all of the POTWs for here, Jordan River?
Or the farm, or it's now the Wasatch Front Water Quality Council.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, Wasatch Front Water Quality Council.
Is that the best organization that would be able to identify the POTW specific spot for this seat?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it doesn't include Springville and Payson, and it doesn't include the smaller entities, it's just
I think having that discussion with the mayors and the members of the governing board from local communities can probably be a factor in that discussion. I think there's some decision of the overlap between like Timpanogos district and some of the northern communities. So I think having them involved in that discussion as well as this other group, as well as the POTWs overall would probably be a good way to do that. But those discussions probably ought to take place kind of together.
And I don't know.
Now, it's a small enough number of entities, I think we could just have a meeting and get together and determine that. You know what I mean?
And we can,
Like Timpanogos, Orem, Provo, Spanish.
so
Fork,
should I
Springville.
just send an email out to those 7?
Yeah, I would
and-
just send them out and just have them all get together and make a decision, so. I think that hash it out.
All right. Thank you. Sorry.
Let's see. Added a sentence on page 10, just to make the expectation that science panel members are also expected to attend meetings. And then we had a comment to make the table more consistent with the text. I'm sure for the most part, I think that's consistent, but in my mind, you know, so all that's just recommendations for when the steering committee gets down to the business of establishing the science panel. So we just put out those expertise that we thought might be relevant to the study. And then a comment from Utah Lake Water Users Association dealing with science panel's ability to submit a minority opinion in the event they need to. And so where it was written before, it made it seem like the individual position papers will be submitted, but this kind of broadens it and allows a group of folks to submit a joint minority opinion. And then on the figure in the back, I don't have the actual changes highlighted here. Instead of tech reports, I spelled out technical reports in the study block, and then changed the flow diagram a little bit to, on the recommendations aspect of things, to where I didn't have a line connecting the steering committee recommendation to the water quality policy block and the Utah Lake Commission. I think was just going to the commission, where the text states that the recommendations from the steering committee are going to be sent in both directions.
Who is the water quality standards work group?
So we had this question last time, I think, and this is a group that's led by Chris Bittner in my office. He's kind of our standards development person. And it's a group that they kind of run by and get opinions on water quality policy. And I think it's an interest-based group. I think there's an industrial representative, Leland, and Theron sit on that group. So the wastewater community is represented. I think there's some wildlife resources, Department of Agriculture and Food is on it. But beyond that, I'm not real sure. But I think it's a panel of about, Rich, have you participated in those meetings? I don't attend those, but about 10, 15 folks from a broad range of interests. that provide recommendations. And really their job is to take the package that would come out of this steering committee and say, okay, well, in order to really put this into water quality policy, into rule, these are the components that we need to have. So it's kind of taking the science and the policy recommendation and then adding in the details the steering committee may not have considered or known to consider in order to put it into policy, into rule.
All right.
So Scott, I had 6 comments, and I don't think that they were addressed. Can I address them now?
Sure.
Some of them are pretty conceptual idea, like steering committee is the one that sets the objectives and the goals, and then the science panel is the one that does the work and send it back up.
Okay.
So starting off with that, I had
Were these comments that you've sent to me?
I sent them to Dave Decker, and I assume that you got them as well, because the mayor was asking for them. So I don't know if they got forwarded on, because I was doing it internally with Provo.
When was this?
20th of March is when I sent my comments in.
Oh, okay.
So but these ones, I think they're, well, some of them might be substantial, but if we turn to page 5, the very top thing says participates in up to 6 steering committee meetings per year. I don't think we want to limit that to 6. I would say that you'd want them to attend as many, you know what I mean? I think we can kind of address that through the document, right? I think that.
Say that again?
Right there, right.
Yeah, I see the 6. Please.
It says participate in up to 6 steering meetings per year. I don't think you want to limit
Just say
it.
all.
Yeah, well, you want to get them to go to as many meetings as you want, right? I think you were trying to say that you're going to have, you're going to have 6 meetings a year in the steering committee. I don't know what you were trying to get there.
Well, I think we're just trying to give a level of expectation so folks can understand what level of effort is involved. And that's kind of where we thought that the steering committee would probably meet about 6 times. That's different than if we said they needed to be there 12 times a year. That level of commitment is quite a bit different.
So you haven't anywhere in the document said how many times. They could meet 20 times in the year, and now you're saying that they participate in up to 6. I think to me that just kind of limits the participation that you're trying to say.
So you would recommend in all?
And then you can maybe say approximately 6 in
Well, I don't know where
brackets.
6 is coming from, is what I'm getting at.
On the top of page 7, it expounds on that 6 times per year. And it does say that it may be more frequently as needed, especially at the start.
Right, but what I'm saying is if I'm a participant, then I only have to go to 6. If you have 12 meetings, then I only go to 6.
But that's why I say, if it were to say participate in all
Yeah,
I think we
steering committee meetings per year, approximately 6. Or
approximately 6 meetings.
expectation is about 6 meetings.
Yeah, I'm just saying that I think that sentence should be more in line with what you're trying to say. Go to as many or all of them as you can, that's all I'm
I
trying to
think
say.
that's
Then the same on that same page there, the bullet item, I think it's 5, develop and document formalized goals and objectives for this project. I think that should be well stated in the objectives of the steering committee. Am I misreading that somewhere, that it's not in there somewhere? Because isn't that what the steering committee is supposed to be doing? You got under the member duties on page 5, you see where I'm talking about, develop and document formalized goals and objectives for the project?
Yeah, I don't see it in the objectives.
I think that should be one of the main objectives of the steering committee. I mean, at least how you stated it previously. And you put it in the members' duties, but I think it should be in the objectives of the committee.
Okay.
Under 5 of the objectives, on page 4, it says acknowledge and quantify and qualify uncertainty associated with the proposed water quality. I think that this steering committee should acknowledge it, but I don't know if they have the expertise to quantify or qualify. Now that's, I guess, up to debate, you know. We want to take the recommendations from the from the science panel. I was sitting on the panel trying to determine uncertainty from a laboratory point of view. That's actually that's a tough thing to do, to quantify and qualify uncertainty.
But I think that one, it's envisioned that they will do it with the science panel, not necessarily they will do it.
Yeah, but I'm saying that the science panel should do that, and then the steering committee should acknowledge it. I don't know if they have the expertise to qualify and quantify.
Scott, isn't that why you added the academic interest on the steering committee though, was to be able to digest the information?
Well, that, but not specifically for the uncertainty part. The addition of that academia.
Well, I'm good to keep it in there. I'm just saying though, that kind of may go beyond the ability of the steering committee is what I'm saying.
Objective 7 of the science panel is to develop a process to characterize scientific uncertainty, including confidence of scientific findings.
And I'm fine with that. I'm just saying of the steering committee being able to have the expertise to do that. I'm saying they definitely should acknowledge it. But I don't know if they have the expertise to quantify and qualify. That should maybe come from the recommendation from the science.
I think that would be fine.
And in the science panel, on page 8, you have 2 and 3. It says identify gaps in science understanding of the lake ecosystem related to the nutrient cycling to be addressed for the water quality development.
Okay.
And provide recommendations to the steering committee for science objectives required to fill gaps in understanding. Maybe I don't understand that because I thought that the science panel was going to set the goals and the objectives for the science panel, right?
The steering committee?
Yeah, the steering
So
committee
they will
set the
goals and
goals.
objectives.
Right.
The steering committee is also going to provide review and approval of the science plan. So I think that's what that's getting at here. So they'll provide that recommendation of what the study objectives are. You know, I guess maybe that should be not objectives, but provide recommendations to the steering committee for scientific study required.
Well, they're gonna have to identify gaps, but it needs to be related to the goals that they are set forth, like
Yeah,
from the
and that's
science
why
plan.
the science panel will pass out the recommended scientific study
Back
to
up.
the steering committee, because the steering committee developed the goals and objectives. So they want to make sure that the study and the science plan fits within the goals and objectives. of the
Right,
project.
so on the members' duties on page 8, that first bullet point, it says review and provide recommendations to the steering committee on project background goals and objectives and decision-making process. Is that goals and objectives, the goals and objectives that's set forth in the steering committee, or that's their own goals and objectives within their science studies?
I think it could include both. I think the science panel has value in providing, what the reasonable science goals and objectives ought to be to the steering committee while they're considering them.
The only reason why I bring that up is because when I talked to Jeff, he said that initial steering committee, you're trying to set the goals and the objectives, because when you get into research, there's lots of things that all of a sudden start blossoming.
Putting constraints on it, so.
And we want to put constraints from the objectives and the goals set forth from the steering committee. Isn't that what we're basically trying to do?
Yeah, and the steering committee often will set the overall goal and objective or the question that you're trying to address. And then you look to the science panel, the experts, to say, okay, well, what do we need to do to address that overall objective? And then, so I think that there is value in the science panel providing feedback back to the steering committee to say, you know what, that question is just too big, or it's not really providing us the guidance that we need. And so there will, I think, there's value for there to be interaction between the two groups.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree with that. I just wanted it to be clear that the steering committee is the one that sets the goals and the objectives.
But then the science panel here has an opportunity to take a look at those goals and objectives and see
Right, and I
From
just
a
wanted
different
that to be clear that who's leading who,
Mm-hmm.
that obviously the steering committee is gonna get input from the science panel, hopefully there's that interaction that's going back and forth.
Yes.
But if they wanna go down a whole bunch of bunny trails, the steering committee is gonna say that's outside or that's okay within the scope of what we're trying to do.
And that's what we're trying to do with this.
I just wanted that to be clear on that. And then, so turning on to page 9, the first bullet point, the science panel shall assist DWQ and the steering committee in developing a strategic research program. And then that first line that says addresses appropriate monitoring, modeling, analytical methods, data management, and research requirements to meet the stated program objectives. And I don't know if that's, and I just wanted to add in the steering committee's goals and objectives. Is that just redundant in saying that there?
I want to explicitly state that the program objectives are those ones developed by the steering committee.
Well, because the program objectives, if we read those in the beginning of here, it's what the DWQ is already saying it's on the nutrient thing, but the steering committee might go into more narrow focus on a particular project that they're working on. That's the only reason why I'm thinking that we ought to add the steering committee's goals and objectives, because we want to meet those goals when we're all said and done. And they might be narrowed. Just talking from Jeff and the previous projects, for us to get done, we've got to be pretty laser focused on what's going on. That's the only reason why I was adding that, and that's my 6 points that I had to add there.
So was that, do you know if that was sent in an email or a letter? Or?
I did send that email to Dave.
To Dave.
Yeah, he's my boss's boss's
Yeah.
boss.
I didn't personally receive a letter or an email from him, and I'm not aware of that.
But that's okay. I hope I wasn't out of line to add those post all this discussion and objectives that you've been trying to reach here. So.
Yeah, let me know on if he sent that, if I just completely missed it, but I didn't see that one.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Like I said, that was an internal Provo thing, and I don't know if it got pushed up. So maybe it was just me trying to understand a few things. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments?
Thank you, Scott, for providing us that update. Thinking back to where we started, we've come a really long way in a relatively short time. We appreciate your dedication to this, and our meeting is certainly a lot less hostile this morning than it was a few months ago when we started this process. I think that speaks to your patience and willingness to listen, so we appreciate that.
What's the expectation for today with this? Because I think we were going to have this body make a formal recommendation to the commission.
Yeah.
And then I guess we have some edits to improve, so the recommendation will include those adjustments probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll maybe just talk briefly, Eric, about what the next steps are and what you need from us in order to go back to the governing board.
So what I was hoping for is that we could incorporate a couple edits that we came up with today into this draft. So it would be this draft plus those, maybe a red line edit or something like that with what we changed today.
Okay.
I will send that out to the governing board for their electronic approval. And so they'll just email me back and say, yeah, let's do it. And I can get a majority vote through email on moving ahead with this as far as a endorsement back to Division of Water Quality. And then in addition to that, we would have the resolution that we drafted that has just a couple edits that have been incorporated into that. Sarah, thank you for sending those. And this would be the kind of the official recommendation of this body that would accompany the draft document that the Utah Lake Commission could also endorse, and then we would get this signed by our commission chair.
I'm wondering if we could maybe take out step 1, and by approving the resolution, we are therefore approving the stakeholder process that's been outlined. maybe we only need one formal action of the committee today.
Oh,
To
yes.
approve the resolution, rather than approve the document and then the resolution that supports the document.
Sorry, to clarify, I'm simply planning to send this along
Okay.
with any corrections or
Okay.
edits to the governing board, along with this, and this is the formal action of the governing board, and this is what they'll review along with those edits.
Okay. So do we have any more comments or suggestions, discussions regarding the resolution that was distributed? Correct.
I've got a couple thoughts on the resolution. Scott, I want to echo Mike's comments regarding what I know has been a laborious and sometimes agonizing process to get to where you are on this document. And like Mike, I think the fact that there are a number of people who are not here today reflects the magnitude of success, which is monumental in some regards in what you've achieved. On the resolution, in the third whereas, and I'm just referring to the draft you sent out yesterday, Eric.
If anybody needs a copy, I've got 10 or so here.
And I don't know, and I'm an engineer, I'm not a writer, but there's something in there that just didn't quite make sense to me in terms of understanding what we're saying. The Utah Lake Technical Committee recommends this framework and acknowledges that it will allow for a bunch of stuff to be conducted on Utah Lake 2 Division of Water Quality and Utah Lake stakeholders, then using best science. It's just the sentence that says we're going to conduct on Utah Lake 2 Division of Water Quality there that just ain't quite.
I think that may not have been saved. That was one of Sarah's recommendations, and I might have sent out the wrong saved after. So that's supposed to say, conducted on Utah Lake by Division of Water Quality and Utah Lake stakeholders using the best available science.
So the word "to" is replaced by the word
By. Does that clarify?
Yeah, let me just read it real quickly here myself. Okay, yeah, that's good with that one. Okay,
By I guess I would say.
right, and I'm that, yeah, that addresses that question, thank you. And then the other thing that I thought would be helpful in here are the discussions we've had at the technical committee level, and I think the governing board as well, and that is, we've had this discussions regarding the element of the feasibility of where we end up being an important part of the consideration in terms of the feasibility of actually being able to accomplish the goals or implement the final outcomes of this process. I thought should somewhere be addressed in this resolution, and where I had envisioned it being, recognizing that this is an expression of the intent and desire of the governing board. It has little legal significance, and if it's in here someplace and I missed it, let me know. But my suggestion is on the paragraph that begins on line 34, whereas the governing board seeks to find sustainable watershed solutions, and then goes on, I'm suggesting we simply insert the word find sustainable and feasible watershed solutions for Utah Lake, and then continue the rest on, just to insert that is also one of the aspirational outcomes that the governing board has associated with this process.
Sustainable and feasible water quality solutions for the lake continuum.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that, do you? Yeah, we can incorporate that.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. We will go ahead and entertain a motion to adopt the resolution, including the comments made by Greg this morning. Anybody would be willing to make that motion? It's been motion made by Sarah. Can somebody second that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Seconded by Greg. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And then any opposed? All right, thank you. Does that give you what you need, Eric?
It does.
Great. Perfect. So you will keep us updated, I'm sure, and we'll probably hear from our governing board representatives how things proceed in terms of their vote and approval.
And then I have one more question from Scott.
Okay.
For steps moving forward, what are you envisioning?
Kind of timeline. So once we have the governing board consider this, I think we'll start the nomination process for the steering committee membership. So you'll be involved in that, reaching out for your member entities, determining the municipal spots and the QTW spots. And then we'll work through the other ones, like recreation and the conservation and environment. Spots are ones that aren't exactly obvious. There's some potential different organizations to be represented in those. But then for the most part, the other ones are pretty well designated who they be of Division of Water Quality. Department of Natural Resources will reach out to DNR and have their leadership make a recommendation on who will serve as their representative and alternate. The Utah Lake Water Users Association, we've been working with them, and there's a couple of ways that we might be able to pull in an alternate to represent one of the other interests in there. Fish and Wildlife Service, we've reached out to them and they're interested in participating. So we'll just formalize that. Agriculture and Food, we're gonna work with that collective group and ask for their nominations. Public Health, Utah County Health Department, that's a pretty easy one. Recreation and Environment, like I mentioned, are difficult ones that we'll work on, and then Water Management of Utah Lake. We haven't heard any feedback on otherwise whether Central Utah is an appropriate representative there, so we'll reach out to them to include them in the process.
Do we have a date more or less that we're shooting for to have nominations made and kind of convene for the first time as a steering committee?
So nominations, I was thinking April, May-ish. We need to work through a process by which we can hire a facilitator. So that'll take a little bit of time, and we're hoping that May, June, we could convene the first steering committee meeting.
Okay.
So assuming procurement and all those
What would be
things.
the role of facilitator?
Facilitator, just to conduct the meetings and work amongst the stakeholders to kind of facilitate that collaborative approach. So in the document here, we've laid out that both the steering committee and the science panel will involve a facilitated process.
Thank you.
Right. Our next agenda item is a communications update from Sam.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. So briefly, you can see on the agenda there just some statistics about the successes we've had with social media and our outreach there to the public. Obviously, our Facebook has had some significant improvements of late. We're glad to see that it's reaching more and more people, and more people are engaging on those topics that we present there, whether that's recreational topics or lake improvement projects. It's been great to see the reactions from people. Instagram has been a huge success. In February, all of our posts, which add up to about typically one per day, so about 30 posts for the month, reached over 135,000 impressions. So that's each impression is one time a photo was viewed. So one person can view a photo 10 times, and that's 10 impressions. But a lot of great successes on the website. A little bit lower there on numbers than we've had before due to some converting from our URL. However, I just checked this month already. We have already passed the month of February. March was a little bit higher, around 3,000, and now we're already passing that again. So our website is definitely reaching out to the public, and developing some of those resources has been a big help. This week, with some responses from Central Utah Water and from DWQ, we should be, by the end of either this week or next, launching our FAQ page, which will address recreation topics, algae, water levels, a variety of common questions that are asked, and the public needs to have a resource to find. So that will be something we'll provide to everybody. I would definitely hope that we provide that link in this following meeting next month to you all as well, to use as a resource for the residents you deal with. In conjunction with that, we, like Eric said, having the interns is going to help us a lot with our public outreach and public relations. We specifically are going to try and develop a press release. We're going to teach them all about that and make sure that we are getting the good word out about Utah Lake to the media, so they're covering all the hard work that you all are doing, for instance, with this water quality study and the other efforts on the lake. Anything else you'd like me to highlight? That covers it? Okay. Questions?
Of course, we did get the story yesterday with the pirates.
Yeah, I saw that one right before I left. I don't know if you saw it yet. Two gentlemen decided to make themselves a boat out of I think it was a tabletop and something inflatable. Dressed themselves as pirates and did you see
inner tubes.
Is it inner tubes?
No, county did, but I took the report.
Did you see what? I didn't even know where they launched from or how they got away with
They
it.
launched
but-
from American Fork. They attached 4 black inner tubes to their
Tabletop.
dining room table, put a broomstick and attached their hammock to it, and made it about 1,000 yards outside of American Fork Harbor
And then had
before
to
their
be
inner tube popped.
Yeah.
And they were dressed as pirates.
Oh yeah, dressed as
Yes.
pirates and everything. They thought their hammock idea
They
was a
had
great
one
idea.
life jacket between the two of them and a wetsuit inside of a bag. They're lucky they're not dead.
Yeah.
They some miraculous way, I didn't know this sandbar existed, they found a sandbar that was about this deep, so they were able to stand there. They denied the first fisherman that passed me, hey, do you guys need to ride back in? No, we're fine. Water temperature's like. Anyway, the county deputy, first on scene, commandeered a boat, went out there and made them get into his boat, brought them in, their body temperature is around 90 degrees. They're lucky they didn't get transported to the hospital.
What was
Two
their
gentlemen
game plan
from-
at that stage?
Huh?
Was
They
their
didn't
game
sound
plan
like
to
they
stay
had
there
one.
a little longer?
They thought they were
That's an
fine.
excellent
They were
question.
teenagers, weren't they?
They're 24. They're
Oh,
not
24.
teenagers. They're not. They're from Colorado. We
Ah.
thought for sure that the bag they threw on board, we were going to find all kinds of goodies, but I really should have done a blood draw. I'm sure we could have found all kinds of fun stuff in their system, but
So,
yeah.
that did hit the news last night. It's
It
been
is
kind of a-
funny, but excuse me, dumbasses are really lucky to be alive.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh my gosh.
So thank you.
All right, thank you, Sam, we appreciate that. We just kind of open up the floor to any comments from the technical committee. Yeah.
Eric and Sam, have you guys been involved with Vineyard and their Earth Day cleanup?
Yeah, I should. I'm glad you mentioned that. I should probably briefly talk about that. That's actually one of the events I just sent out press releases to all the major news media outlets this morning for that. This Saturday on Earth Day, Vineyard City was proactive and told me they wanted to do a cleanup, and we've kind of turned it into a big event. From the city manager's report, Jake Maharkey, it sounds like it could have potentially 300 to 400 people coming to it, which, as far as I'm aware, at least would be the largest cleanup the commission's ever been able to accomplish. Our goal is to basically, roughly on the map, it'd be easier to show, but roughly the entire length of Vineyard along the Utah Lake shoreline. That is our goal for accomplishing that, and we feel that's feasible.
4 south up to Vineyard Beach, right?
Yeah, 400 south all the way up to Vineyard Beach. We do have a group of dedicated hunters that from DWR, they sponsored it as well. They agreed to allow that be qualified for dedicated hunter hours, so they're going to help with vegetation removal. And then the rest of the residents and businesses and some LDS wards that are coming will be working on trash cleanup from anywhere from litter up to, we apparently have a junk car that's going to be removed and some sofas and other things as well. So they're very excited about it. We're hoping to get a lot of press. I just heard from Jake this morning, Daily Herald plans on being on site with some reporters there and releasing a story about it. So that has been part of that effort. So I appreciate you mentioning that, Sullivan. We're very excited about this cleanup and what it's going to produce for the lake in PR.
So I have 2 that's past Saturday, we had 3 other guys besides myself doing some trimming and.
Oh, you were there for the help with that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they did some of the prep work on it.
Dedicated hunters like lizards.
I buried up our, yeah.
There you go, yeah, Jake was very excited to have that. So yeah, they did some prep cleanup last weekend. And the cleanup that the dedicated hunters are doing this weekend is to continue that project itself. So we're very excited that Vineyard is supporting us in that way, and they're helping to clean up the lakeshore.
Okay. Appreciate that update. Any other updates from members of the committee? Yeah, Greg.
Mike, I just wanted to say, as a number of people here know, but probably not everybody, this is going to be my last meeting with the Utah Lake Technical Committee. I'm dipping my toes into the retirement side of the fence at the end of the month, so I won't get with you personally. And I just wanted to express my gratitude for this group and the commission, and particularly some people like Mike and Sarah, as well as Chris Kelleher and Reed Price, who aren't here, that I've been working with over the last 10 years since the formation of the original study group and subsequent Lake Commission. I think I've seen a lot of great things happen as a result of the efforts of this group, and see great things moving forward with this water quality study. I'll continue to watch from a distance and continue to be a stakeholder of some sense, if not an official one, and watching the progress this group makes moving forward. And I think Utah Lake has the potential to be an even greater asset for the local community than it already is. And what this group and the commission does, I think, will be a key part of achieving that success. So just want to let everybody know and express those words of gratitude.
Thank you, Brad. Thinking back, you've been there from the very first start of this whole thing and have provided feedback on items that we didn't think Provo City would even care about. But you put forth the effort to let us know and have always been a steadying force, and so we really appreciate that, Brad. You're one of the stalwarts, and honestly, I can't imagine coming to these meetings without you being here. So
I appreciate that. And if you feel there are some random extraneous comments that need to be rendered, I'll still be around.
We may try to convince you to come back for a follow-up meeting to give you some sort of carp trophy or something. I will let you know when it's ready, and we'll have you come back for that.
All right, I'd be honored. Thank you.
thank you. You probably should. Sure thing.
I guess I'll mention something that's not my thing. It's Central Utah Water Conservancy District has decided to pull together a Utah Lake Symposium on May 23rd. Close enough, either day, you can come either day. But come on May 23rd. I don't have real details. We're working on the agenda of what those presentations will be, a wide range of topics on Utah Lake, and pulling it together, we'll send out invitations. I'll get them to you, Eric.
Great.
And we can send them.
Is it similar to what the Utah Lake Commission used to do a few years ago?
Yeah, and that, had kind of faded away, and we think there's value now to bring that back, and engage parties again in just understanding the lake and understanding all the wide range of issues. It's not small, so.
Where will it be held?
We're gonna hold it at the Utah Valley Convention Center.
And what time? All day?
Most of the day.
10 to 2. That's what I said.
Starts at 9.
Is it 9?
9 o'clock?
Yeah, 9 to 2:30.
9 to 2:30.
Most of the day. But let me get more information out to you, but put that on your calendar. We'll send out invitations and.
So is that 23rd or the 24th?
No, it's the 23rd.
23rd.
Yeah.
They're going to call it the Utah Lake Summit because we actually have a copyright on the term Utah Lake Symposium.
Oh, scratch that from the minutes.
Who is we then? The JR, June Sucker Recovery Program? Who?
No, I'm joking.
Oh,
do we have any comments from members of the public? Maybe there. Dean usually gives us an update, but I think he had to leave.
I just wanted to say thank you for all the people that participated in the Utah Lake Half Education Day that we had. Thank you very much.
That was great. It was very educational.
All right, well, reminder that our next meeting is scheduled for May 17th at 9:30. It will be held here again in this room. So, thank you again for your participation, and we will stand adjourned until that time.